What's going on, builders? Happy Software Sundays. On this show, we are on a mission to inform, educate, and start conversations around technology and the transformations that it can have inside of our community. So, if this is your first time here, welcome. If you've been rocking with us for a minute, welcome back. It's great to see you again. For a few announcements, so we do have Valentine's Day coming up. I do want to say I hope everyone is spending some time with the people that you love, getting around good energy and taking care of the people around you. And hopefully you getting taken care of as well. And the temperature where I'm in Jersey right now. We done had some of the coldest weather I have experienced in a few years. And so everyone, just be safe, stay inside if you can, and just check on the people that are, around you. No one wants to get frostbite. No one wants to get exposure in this type of weather. So just be careful as much as possible. And with that, let's get started. Quick disclaimer. So we will highlight different topics that may or may not uh, relate to your specific business's situation. Please remember, this show is not professional advice. The views expressed by me and the people quoted, they do not reflect the views of Build, Learn, Impact or their affiliates. If you are looking for specific professional, legal, or tax advice, please consult your own advisors before making any decisions based on the information that you may have heard from this show. So let's get started. First piece of news that I want to cover this week is that Y Combinator startups will begin receiving or having the option to receive their funding via stablecoins. The current stablecoin option is through USDC, which is a stablecoin created by Circle, and they are 100%, according to their reports, one-to-one backed by U.S. Treasuries. And so this is an interesting, uh, I guess, transition inside of the crypto blockchain space because ever since the Genius Act was passed, we are seeing, I guess, faster adoption of crypto, of stable coins, and just the decentralized financial platforms. This is something that's going to help really boost the companies that are operating in that space. So if you're working on stablecoin technology, if you're working on DeFi and all of the different problems attached to that, you're probably going to have a big benefit just because so many different institutions are adopting these technologies. For YC, one of the biggest and most well known VCs to be uh, just pulling crypto and these types of technologies into their ecosystem uh so uniquely is going to be a show of force for the industry because you can tell that stable coins and crypto are no longer just something that are in the fringes of society. We're seeing adoption by large asset managers. We're seeing ETFs for Bitcoin and Ethereum. We're seeing different cities and municipalities incorporating not only stable coins, right? We looked at Wyoming creating their own stable coin, but also uh, counties like Bergen County in New Jersey, which have put a lot of their, or they're in the process of putting their deeds onto the uh, Polygon network and other uh, chains that they can sync with. But basically, this is not a one-time thing. We're really starting to see what's going on. We're starting to see the adoption curve, like it's going where it's getting to the place where crypto is more trusted. And that's the main barrier that it had before. The federal government for a long time was very much anti crypto, anti DeFi. And so that definitely, along with other scandals that I mentioned last week, those made it more difficult for people to say confidently, I am going to put some money into these stable coins or into these uh, cryptocurrencies. And now that we have different regulations and uh ex- different accept levels of acceptance at the federal level, it's going to transition and trickle down into the different parties that are using these technologies. Something I thought that was worth keeping in mind is that the coin that they use, or the stable coin that is being backed and pushed by YC, is USDC. Now, there are some other stable coin providers, but Circle has one of the largest and most reliable asset backed stable coins. And so they are the winners in that space. Circle, if you wanted to build something on top of their infrastructure, they do have SDKs and a lot of trainings available for developers to get started building in the space. You can create your own, I don't know if they provide wallets, but you're able to create your own extensions of their networks that allow you to have smart money and allow you to have different contracts and programmable money that you really could not have with the traditional banking and financial systems that were in place. So this is very cool for developers building in the space, and a this I don't know. I don't even know if it's like a early insight into what's gonna happen, because we've already been seeing what's happening over time. We The cat is not going back in the bag for crypto at all. We are definitely moving toward stable coins and more decentralized finance. Something that was very interesting about the Genius Act is the fact that the regulatory requirements for these stablecoin providers is to have a auditable cash equivalency on hand for them to really claim stablecoin status. So most cryptocurrencies are not going to be able to count as a stablecoin. The reason why USDC can count as a stablecoin is that uh, they have the ability to validate that every USDC coin available is going to be backed by a specific treasury, right? So this is increasing the adoption of treasuries in the US government. So that makes US dollars more attractive all over the world, because stable coins are something that can be used globally. We're not just talking about USDC, which can be used inside of the US, right? You can actually take this stable coin and commit transactions across across continents, across regions, with the same uh, level of stability as you would get by using US dollars, but you also get to bypass some of the most expensive transfer fees and the long waiting times that you would need in order to really do cross border payments or cross border business. So, because USDC is in place, there is an opportunity now for people inside of, uh, let's say, Nigeria, for them to actually pick up and get a wallet, get some USDC, and actually be able to do transactions reliably. Right now, a lot of different countries that use cryptocurrencies as a hedge against their own native country's monetary system. The challenge exists because today Bitcoin or Ethereum might be worth 100 US dollars, for example. It really was 100K, right? Maybe 3 months ago, maybe 2 months ago, Bitcoin was worth 100,000 US dollars. Today, it's worth, well, within the last week, it touched 69,000. So if you're thinking about money, which is used for doing transactions and used for, um, you know, making sure commerce can actually happen. If you're trying to use a currency that you don't know if it's gonna be worth gold today, uh, copper tomorrow. Uh, that's probably a bad analogy for that, but basically, you don't have that price stability is really valuable for people trying to use these currencies to have day to day business operations in their areas. So USDC expands the number of people who have access to a stable currency while also giving them the freedom that they would need to bank and have that stability without actually having to be inside of the US financial system. You don't have to create a bank account. You don't have to provide any of your KYC requirements. You don't have to be a US citizen to get access to stable coins. And you can trust that those stable coins, specifically USDC, is one to one backed by a hard asset. This is what the US dollar was supposed to be before we got off the gold standard. And let me not get into that history, but basically, and there's a lot of ties there. Who knows how long these stable coins will actually be required to stay one to one to US treasuries or US dollars. That is something that is worth keeping in mind, something that I think about because, yes, they're stable today, and so were other currencies that were backed by gold. But at some point, if the regulations change, if the environment that these companies are operating in decides to say, hey, we no longer need you to be backed by any specific asset, or they try to change the asset, what happens when US dollars continue to get debased? What does that do for the stable coins that actually are built on top of them? I really have no idea. Worth keeping an eye on, though. In other news, uh, Anthropic's new legal tool triggered a sell-off in the stock market without much evidence. And so, if you're not aware, Anthropic has a tool called Claude Cowork. Claude Cowork is a extension of AI where it's more agent systems that allow different teams to be able to collaborate and share data and actually give and assign tasks to an AI agent that is almost working with them. It's the difference between a chatbot where you're speaking to it, going back and forth with it to give you insights, or you're prompting it to an agent that can actually go off on its own and take action and do different things. And it can help get embedded into your business workflows while giving your team more leverage than they would have previously. So, this specific tool was added for the legal industry. So we could help revise contracts or review contracts. It could help identify uh, irregularities between one contract and certain other contract, or uh, amended documents to that contract. So it's a specific agent to help the legal industry. So I'm highlighting this because right now, no one is really sure what AI is going to become and how what it becomes is going to impact the existing products in the market. There are a number of products and technologies that have been disrupted by AI. and could potentially never come back. Um, some of them are, I think, like a Stack Overflow or a, yeah, I'll say Stack Overflow is a good example. To few years ago, if you were a developer looking for an answer to a coding problem or needed some insights about some type of technology, excuse me, you could go to Stack Overflow and you would get different answers about what you needed to get done. Today, if I were coding and ran across a problem, I'm going to open up ChatGPT or I'm going to open up my coding agent, whether it's Claude Code, Cursor, or whatever copilot that you choose to code with. That has shifted nearly 100% of the users from Stack Overflow to these AI tools and systems. Now, we can see that on a larger scale. The tools or the teams that were using some specific provider for their legal document review, will they now change all of their technologies and systems and processes to go from that tested and reliable system to something untested, very new, that could potentially give them an edge or get them sued? That's the question that we're thinking about today. Um, and the craziest part about it is Anthropic even warned users, like they everywhere you see AI generated content, they're going to tell you, hey, do not rely on this data from AI. AI makes mistakes. You will need to double check and review everything you give to it and everything you get from it to actually get the best results out of these products. So it's interesting that the market investors and just people, not workers, just kind of get worried about AI developing so much that people no longer need them or their skills, or that the value of some of these existing teams, people, and products just goes to zero because we have AI now, which is unlikely. It's very unlikely. Think about how fast your company adopts any type of technology. I'm working at a company today and we still don't allow transcripts or transcriptions of video meetings, which is crazy. That's like a very simple thing we could allow. Microsoft also like they have that as a feature. So it's you can see very much at the enterprise level, they don't adopt technology as quickly as the small one person team or even the 5-person startup. So they're not going to be the ones that really shift all of their hundreds and thousands of employees to this new platform that quickly. Now they may test it out, they may try it, but they're not going to move all of their trust to something that has not proven itself just yet. So it was a little bit of an overreaction from the market, which I think wiped away at least $200 billion of value from the stock market. Those numbers mean nothing. It'll be back, right? Like 200 billion in a multi-trillion dollar market. It's all right. It'll be fine. So it just is something to keep in mind if you're building and developing with AI, that you may not yet know exactly what challenges you're going to have to pivot from as different technologies and platforms become available. You're not just competing right now with the existing players in your market or in your space, or even the existing solutions in that industry. You have to compete and stay mindful of all of the bigger players that might just dip their toe in it. I don't know how much effort and energy Anthropic is going to put into refining and continuing to develop this legal plugin that they have. It may not be a priority for them, and they may not have the right subject matter experts, or even data training or training data to actually make it work better than anyone else that may have access to that real data. There are other software providers that might have a easier chance or a better chance at making a better product because they have access to different data to build on top of. That's why proprietary data and data that has never been added into the internet is going to be so much more important for everyone to kind of just keep in mind. All right, and I also saw a blog post from the one of the co-founders of HashiCorp, and he was sharing his experience uh, starting AI engineering and what he kind of learned while getting his feet into building with AI. So it's been very interesting to see and read about his learnings, and even to think about everyone who is practicing with Cursor, Claude Code, or even from the early days when we were just using GitHub Copilot. Uh, the advancements that these tools have made is pretty impressive. It's You can actually trust more to it than you could before, but it still requires developers to think like craftsmen. It still requires us to think about how do we actually augment our existing skills and our existing experience to now bring in AI in a way that allows us to do more than what we could have done without it, without actually delegating 100% of our um, just mind to these tools and expecting them to solve problems like any general problem. That's going to be a challenge for all developers, but especially junior developers who may not have even had time to go through the experience and the problems to build a point of view on this is how you do a code review. This is how you build unit tests. This is how you debug and troubleshoot an issue. If you haven't done all of these aspects of engineering and try to just throw AI at the problem without actually getting your mind around those specific challenges, you're going to find that you don't learn as well. You don't learn as much, and you have much more difficult times actually building bigger and larger systems. It takes, I don't want to say it takes a lot of experience. Everyone can learn it. Everyone can become a very good developer. But when you're thinking about becoming a developer, you have to understand that the best people inside of this field in this industry, they have been doing it for years and decades. The thing that makes you 2 times faster is making them potentially 10 times faster because not only are they able to use this new technology that we all have access to, they're able to use it and throw a little bit more they razzle dazzle into it because they already seen it before. They'd already had to shift from uh if you think back far enough, there was a time before programming languages where you had to actually understand assembly code. I don't even think those developers are alive anymore, just because that's how long ago it was. But there are developers who went from the on-prem data center era to everything in the cloud. They already understand how to adopt new technology. They already know how to separate hype from actual opportunity. For those of us that are newer into our careers, we don't, we may not have that same insight and that same perspective that they have. So it's that's why it was important for me to read through this blog and really just understand what has this person who has been in the industry for maybe a little bit longer than I have and has done more or larger problems or solved larger problems than I have. What have they learned while working with AI? Me personally, I have remembered, because this is something that you should always do as a developer, even if you're writing the code by hand. But I remembered to keep my code changes as small as possible. I remembered that test driven development is a real thing. You should always know how to reproduce the issue that you want to solve, or you should know how to validate whether or not the code change that you made actually fixed the problem. And you should be able to look back and say, oh, all right, I fixed this problem, but did I introduce another problem? So you should have regression testing in place. If you have those and then you start bringing AI into the picture to make changes for you, then you can add the right guardrails to make sure that it's not hallucinating and vomiting bad code all over your code base. That's not something that you would know how to do if you just started vibe coding with a Replit or one of these tools. You don't understand the the scientific method attached to being an engineer versus just building a web page and seeing the button work. So stay aware of that. Um, Another thing to keep in mind is that when you're using these technologies, you should definitely, no matter what tool it is, understand where it's useful and where it's not. There are some times and some places where you may not want to actually let the AI agent actually touch the code. You don't want it to do that. You want it to stay very far away from that directory or that file, because there's a specific piece of knowledge or code there that it requires a certain level of human ingenuity to actually understand and model. When you let the AI play around over there, it may change something that becomes more difficult for you as a developer to identify. And I did want to share some information about big tech, Microsoft, Meta, Alphabet, and Amazon spending collectively around $650 billion just this year alone, or I think 2025 alone, just or they're expected to spend that much money just on building data centers and just on the compute, just on the land, the building out of the cooling systems and the energy systems for those data centers. And this is just the first little bump on the along the trail to 3 trillion by 2030. That was the figure that was shared a few weeks ago. That's how much is expected to be spent during this infrastructure build out, which that means we have another 2.5 trillion to go. I can't even think about 2.5 trillion and how much that really is in terms of spending and what that looks like. What will that be spent on? Well, I know what it's going to be spent on. Chips. It's going to be spent on energy. It's going to be spent on real estate. These are the things that are going to win greatly as this build out occurs. And it's also going to be the bottleneck that is going to stop a lot of competitors from entering the space. Today, if you wanted to train your own model, the amount of resources you would need to train them is going to be impossible to raise or to even have for most companies. So you got to work with the big boys. You got to work with the cloud providers. And these cloud providers are at this point they turn in the software companies building the models against each other. They don't all invested a little bit in everybody. So it's one of those like if you're not already at the table with them, if you're not already foot in the door to get that funding, I don't know if you're gonna have a real uh chance to compete. Let alone if you're trying to compete at the cloud level. Like if you want to just make your own data center, um, and share cloud resources, you can potentially compete, but they playing with too much money right now. And I say too much is more than I have. I'm not gonna say it's too much to other people. You might have it. I personally don't have a billion, let alone 600 to get anything started like that. So it's something I thought was interesting. If you in real estate, if you are into any of the trades, you might have a very good opportunity to go look to see where they building and kind of tailor your business around that because the money gonna get spent. See how you can get you some. All right, we could jump into some of our questions for this week. Thank you to our voice models for always sounding beautiful.
Why should I get into tech?
So I will say that I originally got into tech, got into software engineering and computer science because I was trying to chase a bag. I originally wanted to do something different with veterinary science, and then I had heard that they don't make that much money, but they go to school for a very long time. So I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I want to see where I'm gonna have the opportunity to learn a skill that is valuable and get some money a little bit faster. So I ended up studying computer science. As I got deeper into the subjects that I was learning, I learned about computer architecture, the like what makes a computer run from the hardware standpoint. I learned about cryptography and how we secure modern data and communication over networks. And I learned about machine learning before AI was as big as it is today. And so that got me interested in just continuing to build with technology and learn more about technology because I realized all of the things that were possible if you just understand how the resources work. Like I could build an app right now with my skills. I could start consulting to businesses with my skills. And I could go into different roles across any industry and help them build software or build their processes for that specific industry with technology, with software. Um, and that's not a skill that everyone can say that they possess. So it's very competitive and it's very valuable. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about why should I get into tech. But even as I continue to go into different roles and work with different people, I realized the people that work inside of tech, they are really cool people. They are intelligent, they are highly capable and very confident. These are the type of people that you want to be around. These are people that are understanding that they need to learn daily. They are every day challenging themselves to be better people. If you want to be in an environment like that, tech is gonna be the best way for you to get there. Everyone, I won't say everyone, but a large majority of the people that I meet understand that technology is not staying still. And with that being the case, they know they can't stay still. So that excitement that you get from being in a room full of people that are really trying to compete against Google, the people that are really trying to compete and start their own financial services company, that energy is everywhere in tech. If you go to New York Tech Week, if you're at the Afro Tech events, you get that vibe, you get that confidence, and it's just great to be around those people. But really, when you get into tech, it gives you more leverage than you would get from any other career path or any other skill set that you could potentially look into. You really learn how the world works. You understand how the app that you spend maybe 90% of your day on, how that works. You figure out everything that is happening around you, and that gives you a different insight that most people will never actually get and they can only dream about. So that was my plug for tech. Definitely, if you're not If you're not involved in the space, if you don't know anything about it, find out, ask someone, go try something. If you want to learn from me, reach out, build, learn, impact. We got a lot of resources available. We can point you in the direction of tutorials. We can share mentors information. We can basically get you everything that you need to either become a software engineer that works for companies or a software engineer that develops applications and software for you to bring them into market. So we can get you right, definitely.
How should I use AI in my job search?
So your job search should be focused on preparing yourself and your artifacts for the search, then discovering the areas or the industries and the roles that you want to apply to, then applying, then you go through your interview process, and then you are luckily landed your role. So AI can be very helpful at every phase of your journey. If you're talking about preparing yourself, you can go through the uh, process of revamping your LinkedIn or wherever you want to put your portfolio. Portfolios are very helpful in 2026 because it really highlights what you do, what you know, and kind of where you want to go. If you're in tech, uh, definitely think about getting a GitHub profile and showcasing your projects there. You can add demos on YouTube that actually give a real uh, a much more realistic feeling of this is what you built and this is how it works. That's super helpful. But preparation is making sure that all of those artifacts are in place, making sure your resume has been updated, making sure your latest experiences and projects are up there, making sure you have checked for the grammar and the punctuation inside of your resume and cover letter, making sure that's all clear and concise. Update the description in your LinkedIn bio. Update your title, right? You know, maybe Kevin Dowdy, uh, software developer. I think a lot of people use that initial title on LinkedIn to put their role, but you can say something different. You can say something that really distinguishes you from the crowd. Me, I'm Kevin Dowdy. I'm a tech enthusiast that builds software. I am a tech enthusiast that shapes, turns ideas into software. That's really what mine is. But there's things that you can do with AI to help improve those portfolios and just artifacts wherever they are. Then you can use AI. I won't. You can say AI to give it your resume, give it your experiences, give it your interest, and really ask it which roles based on my experience and my interest, am I actually competitive in? Which roles will I have the best opportunity to, uh, get that role if I'm looking for it? So this is some prep work that you can do. You can have chat say, all right, based on your number of years experience, your your type of experience and the skills that you develop along the way, this is what titles you should be looking into. And then you can take those titles, take those keywords that chat or whatever AI tool you use is giving you, and say, all right, give me the latest applications or the latest job listings for this specific role or this specific title or keywords. And you can look into that every day. You can automate that. You can definitely automate that to send you a list in your email or and go through it like that. But basically, you want to get those roles that you are the best fit for, the best match for, directly in front of you so that you can apply to those and feel confident that your application is going to hit where it got to hit. Um, and I would even filter that search specifically on some whatever recent timeline, whether it's 24 hours, 1 hour, uh, one day, whatever. I already said 24 hours, right? but 1 week, whatever it is. You want to filter it and get it to be to the point where you're one of the earliest applicants, because that does sometimes help when you're dealing with one job listing that's getting over 100 or even over 1,000 different applicants. During applications, you want to make sure you are customizing and aligning your resume and your cover letter specifically to the role that you are applying for. You want to update, depending on how you structure your resume, you want to update your description, right, of who you are. Make sure you are using the uh, personality traits, the technologies, and even the different industries that are mentioned inside of the job description. AI is perfect for matching keywords. You can have it revise your resume and make you sound like the best person for that specific role. Reread it once it gives you the answer. Make sure you're not blatantly lying and saying you've done something that you really had no business doing at any point in your life. So keep an eye for that. But you can you can do the same thing as someone else, but if you guys both talk about it differently, you won't understand where they kind of match. With AI, you can make sure that your experiences that align with the role are actually highlighted in the language that that company is looking for. So keep that in mind when you're interviewing. If let's say you get a interview request to talk to somebody from the company, this is a perfect time to load up the job description, load up some information about the company that you're applying for, and actually use AI, whatever voice mode that you are comfortable with using, to go through the interview process. Have it uh, ask some questions from the point of view of a recruiter or an interviewer, and let you answer them. And then once you go through enough of those back and forths, have it give you a critique. Have it tell you what you can improve, what you could have included, and just let it sharpen you. That's what you can do during the interview phase. And then by the time you get your role and by the time you start at the job, you really you the best one there. You just gotta continue to perform at the best of your ability. And just know that you're meant to be there. So yeah, that AI makes it so much easier to go through the job search. That may be challenging for some people because now you have way more people to kind of compete with, right? Yeah, it's not just you applying to this one company. It's a bunch of people applying to the same company also, and they all have this access to the same tools that you have. So you have to make sure that you are doing something different that they may not be doing. And AI is best for those scenarios. Plus your own natural intelligence.
What are three things you need before you find a developer for your app idea?
One thing I feel that needs to be highlighted is that you do not need to even look for a developer for every idea that you have. Most ideas should just be kept as ideas, because if you have the money, there is a developer out here that will build anything you ask for, and they will do it and happily do it as long as you're willing to pay and as long as you have the money to pay for it. But that does not mean that your idea is going to be a good idea. It doesn't mean that your idea is good enough to build a business around it. It doesn't mean that that developer who built the app is going to own any of the additional work that needs to be done afterwards to turn that app into a business. And you can't sell an idea. Like you can you can sell an idea, but not even but. If you wanted to sell the idea, do that. But if you want to build an app or you want to develop software products, that's going to require a bit more work on your end. I would start with doing some market research. You want to understand who is the person you're building this solution for. You want to understand why they need the solution and what they're doing currently to solve that problem that your software product is going to either replace or it's going to improve. If you don't understand that before you start building anything, it's whatever you build is not going to work. So start there. Then you need to understand the requirements and what needs to be in the product. When I say needs, like when you're building an app or any type of software, you can take it the waterfall route, build the different components, do a bunch of planning beforehand, and then one big shot at the end to put everything together and make it work. Or you can take the iterative process and do something like agile. You're going to step by step add different functionality and features to your product, and over time it gets bigger and better and more tailored to your specific market. I recommend, and it's almost industry standard now, to take the latter approach. You want to make sure that you are putting something out, right? Your MVP, your beta, put that out. See what that needs to have in order for the product to actually get in front of customers and they feel comfortable using that product. Once you have that in place, then you can say, all right, I can add these other features later based on the actual feedback I get from my users. If you're trying to put every idea and make the first version of that app the best version it's going to be, you're never going to release that app. Because every time you get a little closer, there's going to be something, one more thing that just can be added. And you might spend so much time and so much money building that app that you never actually get in front of a customer and they can tell you that that app ain't worth nothing. You want to get to that answer as quickly as possible. You want people to not let you waste too much time building everything that you think is going to be the next Uber. All right. Uh, and then after you do the requirements, you need to have a timeline and plan. Again, going back to you don't want to spend too much time building the thing that no one wants. So figure out how long it's going to take you to get to that MVP or that B1, and then kind of work backwards from there. And then once you give that to your developer, they should be able to either validate, hey, this makes sense, this plan is going to work, and we can do this, or they're going to tell you, hey, I don't think I can meet the timeline that you have in place here based on the requirements that you shared. And or they may say, I don't understand the problem that you're trying to solve based on the market research, the user experience that you described to me from the initial project. You want to get all that information to your developer so that they can give you some clear feedback because they're going to be the ones that are on the keyboard or in front of cursor or Claude code, actually making sure that the thing that you need actually works the way you described it to be. So you want to get their buy-in with all of these resources that I mentioned in as early as possible.
Which IDE should I use?
So an IDE or integrated development environment is going to be incredibly useful for everyone writing code. Uh, I mentioned Cursor and Code earlier. These are newer to IDE tools. They're AI native IDE tools, right? They help you write code faster. And that's what an IDE is going to do. It's going to make your experience as a developer. It's going to make the code that you write more reliable. It's going to make your experience building that code just a lot more comfortable because it'll give you the code check. It'll tell you when your syntax is wrong. It'll help you run and test your code very, very quickly without having to do a bunch of things from the command line. Your IDE is going to be your partner throughout every project that you're building. So you have to make sure you understand it. You have to make sure you are comfortable with it and that it works the way you need it to work. Uh, from a personal standpoint, I currently use Cursor to help make my features and write the code. Then I use IntelliJ for actually running my code, configuring different settings, and actually uh, having some of those syntax uh, highlighting that I prefer and that I'm used to. Cursor is kind of based off of VS Code or Visual Studio Code that I was never really too comfortable with. So IntelliJ just makes it easier for me. I do actually want to get into using Claude Code. I've heard so much about it, and I hope it's not all just cat and hype. But it, I will start. I will also say that it doesn't really matter which IDE you use. If you're coding with Java, you could even use Eclipse. There are tools inside of Eclipse that will help you do your job and write code and do everything you need to do. I think they even have some integrations where you can actually connect to your database, your SQL databases, also, and see those tables more easily. It doesn't matter which IDE you use. It does depend a little bit on the application or the code, say not code, the programming language that you use. If you're using uh or you're building an iOS app or any type of Apple native apps, you're going to need Xcode just because it makes that development much easier for you. There are different tools that they make very unwieldy if you try to bring it into a different platform. But if you're using Python, you can use a Visual Studio Code, or you can use a tool like PyCharms from JetBrains. And so there are different options you have available. All of the AI agent code copilots are, I guess, a different extension of IDEs. Because to me, I focus on them like they're really just my code writing monkey. They will make the change that I need to be made, but they may not help with all the other things. Something I like in Cursor though is that if I make a change, like I can make a branch for my change. I can have Cursor make that change, and then I can commit it. So well, at that point, after it makes the change, I actually go into IntelliJ to run the code and actually test and validate that that change worked because my configurations are all set up in IntelliJ. So after I've tested it on the other side, then I can go back into Cursor and say, all right, this code was good or this code was bad. If it was good, I will commit from there. And then I can from there also push my branch and open up a PR, which makes my job easier. Then from there, I go into GitHub, and in GitHub I can review the code just more tightly. I check that it worked, but now I want to check the actual syntax. I want to make sure that there's no ugly comments that we don't need, and then I'll make those changes there in GitHub. You can always open up the dev playground for your repository and make any changes. Specifically, there will edit the file directly that you're looking at, and then once I'm good to go there, then we commit and merge that pull request into our main branch. And now this is beyond IDE, but at that point, then my CI/CD pipelines will take that code and deploy it where it needs to go. But the IDE, going back to the engineering workflows, your IDE is a piece, a major piece of your engineering workflow. The things that your IDE enables you to do allow you to work faster as a developer and allow you to overcome some of those very simple challenges that have been solved already. You don't need to know why or how this if statement is supposed to look. You know that you need some conditional here. Let your IDE handle the specifics of how to get it in that specific language that you are working with. It just makes that job a lot easier for you.
How do you build a network within your company?
So this is a very important skill to have. whether you're new in your career or you're, a few years in. And it doesn't matter what your long-term goals are. The network around you are the people that can teach you and the people that can advocate for you in spaces that you are not even in. So when you're joining a new company, or if you're in a company right now, you want to lock in with your team early to really just see what the synergies are. You want to see who you can, talk to, whose values align with yours, and then you can build more with those people because you want to make it a good experience, right? You don't want to network just to know all the top people. You want to network with people that you feel comfortable actually building relationships with. So once you have that group, you want to ask them what they're working on. Even if we're on the same team, I have 30 people on my team right now. We don't all do the same thing, although we all help the same function of the business. That being said, you have to make sure you're getting some insights from those people. Ask them to tell you about their part of the work. And through those conversations, right? Because you're gonna have to set up a meeting with them. Through those conversations, you can learn more about who they are, what they do, what they like, what they're looking for in this role and even the next role. You can ask them, what's blocking you? What is a constant problem? And from there, you might even have the answer to some of their problems. And if you do, that's gold for them. That's gold. You could solve somebody's problem on your team. They locked in for life. They gonna want to be around because like, oh, he looked out last time. I had a problem here. He helped out. Boom, we good now. So that's a great way to build your network because now people feel like they can rely on you. And then as you learn, share that with your team. Make sure they understand the work that you're doing. Make sure they understand the effort that you're putting in because great people want to work with great people. If they see you doing great work, they're gonna say, "All right, now I need to spend some time with him, or I need to uh, make sure I'm working with or working well with her, whatever it may be." You want to make sure that they feel comfortable even being inside of your network. And there are very easy things you can do. I won't say easy. There's simple things that you can do that some people just don't uh, keep in mind. And just being respectful. That's something also you need to think about that when you're networking. I don't know how common this is, but I work with a lot of people that we say yes sir, no sir, like or yeah, hello sir. I don't just call everybody, especially the people that are older than me. It's just something to me. I don't feel comfortable calling them by their name. It I like having that level of you know respect. So I think that helps with my networking because they see me not as this young bull that's just out here just doing the work. I'm a respectful young lad that I respect your authority, all that. Like, I'm here to serve under you. You the one in charge. I'm just providing support to you. From a networking perspective, that is great. Them older folks, that's all they need. They need respect. So if you could show that while being somebody that's young on the team and that's working, that's doing the work, well, they gonna definitely feel that. For the people that's your age, I would lean in more to the, you know, asking and answering questions with them because the people like if we both got 3 months on the job, neither one of us know much of anything. So if I tell you what I know, you tell me what you know, then we both might know a little more than we was gonna learn. And then now we both are able to do better work in other places so we look good to everybody else. So again, going back to if you make somebody look good, you don't have to think too hard about the networking aspect of it. They gonna make sure that they locked in with you. They gonna make sure that they connected. They gonna make sure that the door is open for them to ask you questions because they know you the person that they need to be with. If you're not that type of person, people gonna distance themselves from you as early as possible, as often as possible, and there's nothing you could do about that. Uh, so that's all our questions for this week. Some final thoughts that I had. I heard a quote last week that a society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they will never sit in. And I thought that was a very interesting quote because I was talking to someone that, from my perspective, he seems like he feels like the world should do so much more, but um, he's young also. So it's like we don't, from my point of view, we don't really know what needs to be done or how to do it, or at least we're not in in the positions right now to actually have as much impact as we want to have on the world. When I really dissected this quote, it made me think about the fact that it specified old men. Old men are the only people who can plant trees. Why? Because trees take years to grow. It's not like we're saying plant seeds. Anybody could plant a seed, no matter if you're young or old. You could plant a seed any day, but it's gonna take a few years for that seed to grow into something that even resembles a tree. So if we're saying the old men have to plant the trees, that means they already was mature enough to have started the work when they were younger, and now they have something that they can actually give and move around and provide resources to other people. So that made me think like I'm not even at the point where this quote is talking about me. If you on my team or my age, my side, whatever it may be, we need to be planting seeds and expecting to sit in them. I think that's the only way it's gonna motivate you and inspire you to do the work that you need to do to plant those seeds. If anyone has ever farmed or grown anything, any plants, you know it ain't easy to grow anything. You know it's every seed is not going to make it. So when you're young, you have energy to go plant different seeds. You have the time to go try to build things out from your mind, and you have the enthusiasm to do it. But you're doing that with the expectation that one day these seeds will become something that I can benefit from. And that's fine. That's okay. I think that's great. It gives young men an opportunity to focus on something that can be beneficial to them and eventually will be beneficial to the people that come after them. But it just made me think about that. It's like right now, there are old men who are shaping the world that we live in. And they have trees, they have resources that they can place in different places. I can't say whether or not they're doing it to benefit other people because at some point you know whether you think you're invincible as a young man or a child, you know by the time you old that you're not invincible. You know you're not gonna last here forever. So I'm sure they are making decisions for other people and on behalf of other people. The thing is, are you the person or are you in the group that they're making decisions for? That might be the only difference, but that's a whole nother moral issue. But just the lesson here is your seeds are gonna become something. Go plant them. Have some excitement about what you plant because if you plant lemons, you're only gonna get lemons. If you plant watermelons, seeds, you're gonna get watermelon seeds. So if you only plant one tree, you're only gonna have one tree. So plant your seed as many places as possible within reason. Don't go crazy, but be excited that you're gonna get to have the benefit of those trees soon. And if you have the trees, tap in with a young brother, cause I'm looking for trees. I need some seeds off your tree. So holla at me. Nah, but that's really all I have for this week. Everybody be great. Um, I got, I think I got the Seahawks for the football. I hope y'all know I don't watch football like that. But whatever team's on the left, I got them. on this game. Everybody be great, be safe, and stay warm. Peace out.